everyone, and welcome back to Liz Sews and day 2 of the Simplicity 8436 Sew Along. Today we're going to start constructing the bra, so let's get started. Okay, so I have a cut piece here, both the stretch mesh lining and the lace. Now in the directions they say to just, block fuse your lining to your lace and then cut it out as one. I think that's really unnecessary. Not only is it, a lot of fumes that I don't necessarily want to be around when using spray adhesive, but it's also just like a bad use of materials. You end up with a lot of leftover weird scraps that you can't use of the mesh. So I prefer to just cut them into 2 pieces and then just use them like one as an interlining without having to spray fuse everything together. So I've marked out my dart on here. I've just used a friction erase pen. And just like you would in garments, you want to sort of match up your dart legs and then pin it into place. And then we're going to sew this just like a garment dart. We're going to come to the end here. Don't reverse and back up your needle. You just want to leave some tails and then you'll do 3 knots. So this one over here I've already pinned in place and just ready to take this over to the machine. Okay, so I've got my machine set up with a polyester thread. I have my walking foot on and then I have a Microtex needle in here. So all I'm going to do is drop my presser foot and I'm going to sew in a straight line with a straight stitch on that dart leg until I reach that point. So of course, just like you normally do, when you get to the end of the dart leg, don't reverse or anything. You just want to make sure you leave long tails in there that you can tie off. I like to do about 3 knots. And I think that's good enough, and then we will snip off your tails. So once you finish, this is what it should look like. If you want, you can try to press this out a little bit, but I would just be careful because these materials tend to be synthetic and so they have a very high likelihood of melting. So if you want to press it, you can, but I would use just a very cool iron for that. So here we've done that for both cups. So probably some of the easiest cups you've ever seen on my channel. Because that is really pretty much it for construction of the cups. One more thing that I want to do on these before we put them away is just place some picot elastic along that neck edge. So I want to make sure I'm keeping this really pretty scallop to the lace. So instead of doing the picot how we normally do, which is sewing it on the front and then flipping it to the back, which would give you a folded edge, I'm just going to apply the picot straight onto the back with 1 pass of zigzag stitches, just to sort of stabilize that neckline, but still let me be able to see all of those really pretty lace edges. So I have the bra cup with the wrong sides facing up. Then I've got my picot elastic here with the plush side facing up because I want the plush side to touch my skin. And I'm just laying it over the edge of that lining piece. If you cut your lining a little bit too big, that's fine. I would just make sure to sew this in so that it's not sticking out past the scallops, and then you can always trim down your lining later. So I'm going to move my machine to a zigzag stitch, and I'm actually going to make it pretty wide because I'm just going to do this in 1 pass. So I want to make it a wide stitch so that it gets pretty far across that picot elastic. If you don't have picot elastic for this, you could also use like a 1/4 inch skinny elastic. But I think that the picot feels a little bit nicer against your skin. So you can see here that I do have a little bit extra of that lining sticking out. So I would just use some scissors. This is actually what the duckbill scissors are made for, and just trim that off. You can go all the way down just to get a little bit cleaner of an edge. And here's what it's going to look like from the right side. You shouldn't be able to see too much of the stitching just because that zigzag hides in the lace really well. but it helps to stabilize that neckline a little bit. So here we have, this is what it looks like once all that excess lining's been trimmed off, and it looks really nice. You can see I've pointed my picots in the same direction that the scallop does my lace, but that's completely up to you. And I've gone ahead and done that for both of my cut pieces. So I'm going to set these aside for a second. So now we're going to get our band pieces out. We want both the lining and the band piece itself. This is a little bit different than most of the bras that I make. Because this is a partial band bra, I'm going to finish the bottom of my band before I attach it to my cup. So just like we did for the lining, I want to make sure that I keep that really pretty scalloped edge in there. I want to get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is lay my two pieces on top of each other, and just like we did for the lining, is I'm going to bring my picot edged elastic and then sew it onto the back directly with the zigzag stitch. So I've got my lace and my lining sitting here wrong sides up, and my picot elastic with the plush side up, and just like we did for the cups, we're going to sew this on with a really wide zigzag stitch. So here we have our two band pieces from the front, and this is what they look like from the back. And just like we did from the cup, if you need to trim back any of that lining just a little bit to clean up the edge, that's perfectly fine. So now that I have these two pieces, I'm going to attach them to the cup. So one cup's going to go there, and then one cup is going to go here. Now, because this is a partial band bra, you'll definitely have a section of the bra here where there is no band attaching to, and that's okay. So all we need to do is line up our corners. So the top of the corner here with the top of the corner on your cup. And then I would pin that into place. And I'm going to keep pinning until I just run out of band. So it'll run out roughly around the same place where your dart is. Okay, so I have my two cups pinned into my band. And then I am pushing the dart towards the neckline, so towards where we finished off the neckline of that piece. And I've also pinned that in place. So what I'm going to do is sew with 1/4 inch and a straight stitch. And I'm going to sew all the way along that band. And I'm also going to sew my dart down and then sort of stop there. It doesn't really matter where you stop, but I mean, that's just as good as place bending. It's easy to tell you that. I'm going to stop when I got to the end of this dart so that the dart's tacked in place as well. And I don't have to worry about it flopping around later. So I got this on the machine, switching back to my straight stitch. I have a little bit of a marker on my presser foot that shows me where my 1/4 inch is, and I just sew with 1/4 inch. So I've reached the end of where that dart is, so I'm just going to stop and start on the other cup. So here we have that finished. You can see the cup is sitting in there. And then this is what it's going to look like from the inside of the bra. So I'm going to set these aside for now and then pick up our bridge pieces, these little tiny teeny pieces. So I'm just going to stack my two lining pieces together, and then I'm going to stack my lace on that with the right side down. So I have the wrong side of the lace facing up. And I'm going to sew with 1/4 inch straight stitch along this top and along this bottom. So we should have a little tube that we've made. So once that is sewn, it should look like this. So all we need to do is turn it to the outside. Like so. Again, at this time, if you want, you can press it but just be careful not to use too hot of an iron because these fabrics are prone to melting. So I'm going to, I think I will press it just because it is not lying super flat right now. But once I press it, I'm going to cut off these little triangles that are sticking out over the edge so we just have a clean swoop. Okay, so now it's been sort of pressed, it's lying a little bit flatter, and I've cut off those little triangle edges. So now it's time to attach this to my bra cups. So just like we did for the band, I'm going to start from this corner and then work my way in, and I should have a little bit of section here that won't have anything attached to it, either band or bridge. So I look at it from the right side of the cup facing up, right, and this is how I want my bridge to be. So if here's the cup, you want my bridge to attach here. So I flip my bridge onto here with right sides touching, and I just pin this into place. And I'm going to sew along the swooping edge, so it should be the edge that isn't turned in, right? Your top and your bottom are turned in, your two side edges should be raw. So that's what you're going to sew at the straight stitch at 1/4 of an inch just till you get past your bridge. So I like to sew one on and then go in and pin the other one and sew that on, just so I'm not dealing with like dueling pins right here. So let's do this one first and then the other one. Now I am going to go back and forth right here just to secure that a little bit extra. So once I have one side sewn in, I'm going to go ahead and bring the other side over. So I want my bridge right sides together with my cup right sides together. I'm going to reverse and go forward a couple times on the inter and the center front side. And then continue until I get to the end of the bridge. So now you should have something that looks like this, which is really starting to look like a bra once we get that bridge inserted in there. That concludes day 2 of the Simplicity 8-4 3-6 sew along. I'll see you tomorrow.